Hey everybody, welcome to Climb the Ladder for our 75th episode presented by Washed Up Network. I'm your co-host Hunter, and my equally good-looking twin brother Duncan is sitting right here with me. We cannot thank you enough for everybody who's been tuning in each week. Be sure to join our brand new Facebook group called The Climbers, a group specially made for you, our listeners. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes and Spotify. And you can see two of the same face when you head over to YouTube. This episode is brought to you by Raise Energy. Use code CTL Raise at checkout for 15% off your purchase. As always, let's climb the ladder.
What's up, climbers? Duncan here for episode 75, and we're excited to be here for our 75th episode. Can't believe we've made it that far, almost putting the bookend on another calendar year and over a year and a half into this thing, with the bro, with the twin, the teammate, the roommate, the list goes on. But excited to be here, dive into a little bit of the off season that has already been underway with some MLB awards. We've already had some transactions or some potential moving around happening across the league. So we'll get into a few highlights there. We're going to dive into a little bit more on the college football playoff rankings today, and then give a little forecast on all things NFL and the Robertson Turkey Bowl, first ever annual, next week as we head into Thanksgiving week. So full episode for you, again, brought to you by Raise Energy, fueling episode 75. So Hutch, I think we start out by just thanking the listeners. We're already at 45 group members in our Facebook group called The Climbers.
Yeah, shout out to the Climbers, getting the Facebook group going, got a lot of traction. And yeah, we just hope that everybody likes that and it's a good landing page, kind of a home page to see everything that we have coming out and everything going on, and just another platform for everybody to keep tuned and get the updates.
Yeah, it's cool. We got the idea from our fellow Washed Up Network podcast, The Way Out Here Boys. They had a good Facebook group rolling when they were going steady, and I'm sure they'll be back soon. And also congratulations to Washed Up Network co-founder Clayton Panzeri and his wife Hannah on the birth of their firstborn child. Big shout out to the Panzeris there. But yeah, we got the idea from them and figured we'd put our own twist on it and give you guys somewhere to have one centralized location for videos, sound clips, questions, interview highlights, all of the above. Whatever you want to see on there, we'll throw in the group. And yeah, already 45 members within the first week. So let's do that and climb up the number a little bit more.
Yeah, and again with that, just a huge congrats to us and all of our listeners. This is episode number 75, and I can hardly believe it. So thanks again to the Climbers for sticking with us all this time and having fun while we're doing it.
Yeah, well, without further ado, let's get into the meat of today's episode. We've got the first of many MLB awards from the 2021 season being awarded, with the MLB Rookie of the Year awarded to, let me get his first name because his last name is also a mouthful. We've got Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays, and then we've also got the Reds second baseman Jonathan India, both winning the Rookie of the Year for the AL and the NL, respectively. Big shout out to them on the incredible seasons that they had in 2021.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, for India, I mean, he crushed it this year. It wasn't really as close of a race as it was in the National League. But yeah, congrats to India. And then Arozarena was just all over the baseball this year. He crushed it, especially with a good Rays team. Definitely stood out, and definitely a lot more to come off of a solid rookie season.
Yeah, it's cool to see the Rays. They had some good success. The Reds, although they didn't make the postseason, we had our eye on them the last couple seasons. I think they'll be kind of in the Mariners field as far as teams that will be in contention the next couple seasons, but maybe just need the right piece to the puzzle. So definitely winning Rookie of the Year award is a great start to that trend of success for sure.
And then we had Manager of the Year announced. And unfortunately for us as Mariners fans and the rest of the Northwest, Scott Service came up second in the Manager of the Year votes for the American League. It went to Kevin Cash of the Rays. So the Rays are doing something right, but yeah, I mean, Scott Service definitely had our vote. Definitely had the W in our vote of Manager of the Year. I mean, you look at what he did: 90 wins for the ball club, first time, most wins since 2003. I mean, it's hard to beat that. Obviously, the success that the Rays had, led by Kevin Cash, a good ball club, but Scott. It's cool that Scott Service was up there for the Mariners compared with some of these teams. I mean, up against the Rays, which he won, and then Dusty Baker for the Astros. Scott Service beat out in voting, and they made it to the World Series. He was up there with the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the White Sox. Like, those are all good ball clubs, and so having Scott Service lead that for the Mariners and come up short in second place, pretty cool. Says a lot about him and his leadership for the club.
Yeah, one thing I thought about since we talked about Scott Service being nominated last week in episode 74 was I think it's harder to win this award when you don't make the playoffs. I think that
Definitely.
For the Rays, even though they didn't make it all the way, they still had just that much more success making it to the postseason. And so I think that that's probably hard to name a manager, the Manager of the Year, when you can't really finish it off. Where when you're looking at it closer as a Mariners fan, this season was a definite win in our books and something that will go down in history as probably the starting of the next chapter as we go into a successful, hopefully decade or plus of good wins and good teams. But yeah, probably harder for Service to win that award when he didn't make the postseason.
Yeah, definitely. And then stay tuned. We have the Cy Young being announced on Wednesday. I mean, we talked about it last week. Some really good finalists, and then the MVP to round out the MLB offseason awards will be announced on Thursday of this week. But overall, really good baseball season. We've got some early off-season moves happening, and we'll bring you a whole slew of those next week when there's a lot more transactions to talk about. But the Red Sox have got their eyes on people. The Yankees are working with some people. We've already seen a few things with the Angels jumping around. So we'll have a lot more to bring to you guys next week, but it'll be interesting to see. This offseason is going to be busy.
Yeah, one more shout out to Rosarina for being the 6th ever Cuban-born Rookie of the Year. I think we talked about that a little bit yesterday or today, but that's a pretty cool stat. 1 of 6 ever coming out of Cuba. So big props to him representing the homeland, and looks like he's got a very bright future ahead of him.
Yeah, definitely. Well, kind of how the episodes are going to be. Not a whole lot of baseball to talk about because it is the off season, but we will keep you guys plenty busy with our love of football. We kind of talked about some Kraken hockey last week. But yeah, let's jump outside the diamond. And we had a crazy NFL week 10 and as well as some wild college football.
Yeah, I think we'll start with the big boys up in the NFL. Man, first and foremost, we got to get the Seahawks loss out of the way.
We got to get that just done really quick and then move on.
The Seahawks loss in Green Bay was atrocious. Granted, it was Russ's first game back. And not only was the team coming off a bye, but Russ was coming off of over a month out, which was rough. And we definitely saw the rust that Russ had on. The finger looked to be in good throwing form, but he did have a couple get away from him. But yeah, it was just a little bit rough. First shutout in Russ's 150 game career in Seattle. First shutout since before Russ was part of the Seahawks organization. So that was a bummer to see, especially with pretty low final score, because Green Bay honestly couldn't get that much going in the snow in Green Bay either. So definitely a bummer to see there. And also not a lot of light at the end of the tunnel for the Hawks. I think if they would have won this week, it might be a different story. But just looking ahead at their schedule, coming off of a rough shutout to the Packers and now going back home, but playing the Cardinals. The Cardinals always have our number at home, even when they're the worst team and we're the best, which is not the case this year. The only hope that we have there is if Kyler is out again for Arizona, then we might see a small chance. And then after that, we've got Washington, 49ers, and Texans. So I'm hoping even if we lose this week against the Cardinals, we could come up victorious in the next 3 wins and maybe string along a few more wins to the end of the season. There is hope, but right now it's feeling very defeating.
Yeah, that was a rough one. I have a question to pose after this about would it have been worth it to kick a field goal to get 3 points on the board to avoid the shutout. But I have this to say: as of Monday night, with we had an NFC West battle of the Rams versus 49ers, and the underdog 49ers took that one, and the Arizona Cardinals lost. So all of a sudden, the top 2 teams in the NFC West lost in week 10, and it would have been big if the Seahawks had won in week 10, but I feel like it's still up for grabs. I mean, the Rams are a good team, and to go into San Francisco on Monday night and lose that one was very surprising. Also not put up very many points. It wasn't even close. So I feel like the NFC West is still open again. An 18-week season, so a 17-game record. A lot could happen, but yeah, it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel for the Seahawks. But Dunk, what do you think? Is it worth a 3-point to put 3 points on the board at the end of a shutout, or you got to find the end zone?
Honestly, I would have liked to see the field goal. I get where they went till the very end trying to get something together, even on 4th and 22 or whatever it was. But at the end of the day, I say yes. I say you got to make that field goal. They had a chance and they had a penalty. It got them out of field goal range, and then they couldn't convert. I think you avoid the shutout at all costs. I think you got to go home with something on the board, regardless of if it makes a difference in the win-loss column or not. Because that's a pretty rough stat for Russ, his 150th start to get shut out in. Granted, there was a lot of circumstances that went into it, but you do make a good point with the longer season now. The Seahawks are just over the halfway point. They're 5 games back from the top team in the West, who is the Cardinals. But it's crazy to see that there are 8 games left in the season. So they've played 9. There's 8 left because you get 17 games in the 18-week season. So I think we do a little flash forward schedule analysis of the Seahawks and see where the last 8 games of the season are going to take us, because there's a chance. So you're saying there's a chance?
So you're saying there's a chance. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the separation of there's not a lot of good teams, there's a lot of mediocre teams if we just kind of run down these standings. I mean, you even look at like the Dolphins beat the Ravens. Like nobody had money on the Dolphins, and there's just a lot of like middle of the road teams like 6-4, 5-4, 5-5. So only a couple teams really stand out as far as the competition goes. But yeah, what are you thinking with the rest of the road for the Seahawks?
Yeah, even though it seems like there's probably not a chance to come out of last place, there definitely is. So we're sitting at 3-6 here right now, heading into week 11 with 8 games left on the schedule. And I'm going to be bold. and I honestly could see 7 wins in the next 8 games. But I'm gonna be bold but a little bit conservative in my prediction, and I'm gonna say in our next 8 games we go 6-2.
I like 6-2. Um, yeah, I mean, just a couple that jump out. Not concerned, but you look at the Washington football team in 2 weeks on Monday night, which is our last primetime game of the season. They took down a really good Bucks team this past weekend, which might also be one of those fluky things like the Dolphins beating the Ravens. But they're also here to play. But yeah, so coming up we have the Cardinals. Uh, I mean, I would say if we're gonna beat the Cardinals this season, I would hope that it's at home, because we always end the season with them, and that's gonna be hard to get an away win. I think we could beat the 49ers. I think we could. Well, we have to beat the Texans. The Rams are our kryptonite, so I'm not too confident there. The Bears aren't good. The Lions aren't good. So I like 6-2. We could go 7-1 through this whole thing with either a loss to the Rams or one loss to the Cardinals. But 6-2 sounds good.
Yeah, I identified 7-1 first, but I didn't want to be overly optimistic just with the season that we've had up to this point. Um, but yeah, honestly, 6-2, feeling pretty confident about that. Washington has that asterisk because they beat the Bucks. They beat a good Bucks team, but overall, I'd say we should be able to beat them, because it is a primetime game, even though it's on the East Coast. We also do have a Sunday night game against the Niners at home, which I think is a for sure win. We can never take 2 in a season against the Cardinals. It just doesn't happen. So hoping that we can get this one this week at home, and then we might end the season on a loss in Arizona, which could have some poor ramifications. But the
I think
Lions,
my prediction is it'll come right down to it. That game is going to be a hinge game, just like last year, I think was with the 49ers, whether we made it or they made it. If we go 6-2 in this final stretch, that puts us at 9-8, which is just over 500. But also with the extra game, there's an extra playoff team. So be looking for that in the hunt graphics on Sunday, because right now almost every team is in the hunt, even though we are in last place other than the Lions. But yeah, what were you gonna say about the Lions?
I was just gonna say that the Lions, the Texans, and the Bears are a must win. I mean, even though none of those are in our division, I think those are all must wins, especially with 2 of those games at home. I would love a 49ers win in Seattle. And then the Rams, I'm not getting too excited about. The biggest losses I can see coming are a Cards loss and a Rams loss. So we will have to see what that does to the NFC West, but I could see things getting very dicey here in the last month or so of the season as things go on. But I do love that there's an extra playoff spot.
Yeah, I'm saying that we'll be in the hunt battle between Seahawks and 49ers. I think that's going to come right down to it, but I do believe that those will be one of the teams that are in the hunt. The Vikings are shaky, the Bears are not good, as far as NFC teams go. So we'll see, like some garbage wins and teams like the Panthers upset, the Falcons upset people, but then they just get blown out right away. So the Saints might not be as good as we thought. But I mean, most teams are pretty close. The only separated teams really are the Cardinals, Packers, and Rams across, and surprisingly, the Cowboys, which I don't think is sustainable. But otherwise, we have a lot of mediocre teams. So I think that there's a chance.
There is a chance. So moving on from the NFL, we'll revisit that each week depending on how the Seahawks do as we go, because no more bye weeks. We'll have Seahawks football for you every week, and we'll start analyzing the playoff picture once it gets closer. But shifting gears into the college football playoff, new poll came out today on November 16th. So we'll dive into that a little bit, see if we think that they got it right for the top 4 again this week, and see if there's anybody who we think might have a chance to squeeze in by the end of this season. Also, speaking of college football, your Boise State Broncos are bowl eligible, and it came out today that they're looking at playing Coastal Carolina in a bowl game. So
Nice.
could be a fun option. But Hunter, our 2021 college football playoff rankings as of week 12, we've got Georgia, Bama, Oregon, and Ohio State at the top 4.
Yeah, with a notable undefeated Cincinnati at number 5, which is huge as a group of 5 school. I think that they got it right. It's hard to have Michigan and Michigan State in the mix also. And I mean, those are good teams, but the fact that they did get it right to put Cincinnati above both of those Michigan teams, I think is a huge win. I think that if any team gets bounced out of the top 4, it's going to be Oregon. They didn't show up very strong against Wazoo this last weekend. They only had like a 12-point victory. And so with a good, there's a couple of good Pac-12 schools. Like Oregon State is on a roll this year. And so we'll see who ends up in the Pac-12 championship, but that could be the demise for Oregon with an opening potentially for Cincinnati.
I was also looking at Oregon to get bounced. I think that they will. They've got number 24 Utah coming up this Saturday, and then they wrap up with the Civil War, which is Oregon State, Oregon at home in Eugene. I would love to see an upset, Utah taking down Oregon this week. Cincinnati wins out, and Cincinnati, to me, at that point, is a lock for the college football playoff, because I don't think they could leave a 12-0 school out, and they're literally as close as you can get without being in. And yeah, I just think you got to take the Bearcats if they have a full undefeated season.
Yeah, I agree. Also rounding out the top 10, just looking at it, which it just hurts, is the fact that Oklahoma State is number 9 and the Broncos lost to them by 1 point. Imagine how different that would be.
Yeah, I looked at that with Oklahoma State at number 9 and the BYU team that has 2 losses, of which Boise State served 1. So we have 2 teams in the top 15, one that we beat and one that we lost to by 1 point. So if we would have beat Oklahoma State, they would have been out for sure of the top 10. And with BYU having a loss to us with a losing record at that point and still being 14, if we had that win against Oklahoma State and the win versus UCF, we would definitely be talking top 25 right now. But we will wrap up the season in 2 weeks against current ranked number 19 San Diego State, who's also sitting at 9-1. That could be a big potential for an upset and maybe even a chance to play in the Mountain West Championship.
That's for sure. Yeah, it's crazy to think how different it would have been, but I do have to say, for Boise State, I got my t-shirt on today, coming off a fun win in person on the blue. Both of the twins of this podcast were in attendance to see the Broncos top the Cowboys, and that was a fun win. I really think that with how much college football has gotten shaken up this year, with a really good Georgia team, with Alabama losing, with the SEC not having a strong presence, which is a huge difference and kind of unforeseen in the last 10 years. LSU's not in there, Arkansas's not in there, Tennessee, Ole Miss, nobody else is really in there. I think that it does make way for schools like Boise State, like Cincy, like BYU, like San Diego State, to all make a run and have a chance. And so I think that as far as for us, for Boise State fans around the Northwest and especially in Idaho, there is a chance next year, I think, with the new Andy Avalos team.
Yeah, this era is very exciting, a little bit disappointing in terms of classic Boise State success, but at the same time, understanding that it's not going to be the best that they're ever going to be. I think we'll see some really good top 25 teams here in the next 5 years. And There's a chance that we win the Mountain West Mountain Division to play most likely San Diego State for the Mountain West Championship. But just looking at the possibility, not very likely. Utah State is on a 5-game winning streak after we upset them in Logan, and Air Force is also ahead of us. So we're 2 games back from Utah State, 1 game back from Air Force, and we did lose to Air Force. So basically Air Force and Utah State would have to both lose their last 2 games, and we would have to win our last 2 games to even be considered. At that point, we would have the tiebreaker over Utah State. So that is the only way that we play for the Mountain West Championship this year. Again, not getting our hopes up, but you just got to look at the possibilities because we are pretty close with a stout competition wrapping up the season in San Diego against San Diego State.
Yeah, it's been a fun college football season. I know that it's been tough for us for a few weeks, but overall, just kind of putting everybody in a blender and shaking up the rankings has been kind of fun to watch since we don't have a dog in the fight. Sorry for all of the normal top 10 teams and fans of those teams who really are not there. It's not your normal top 10. Like even Wake Forest is in there rounding out the top 10. So it's been a fun one on the outside looking in, but hopefully I think we could make a good bid for a top 15 or a top 12 spot next year if we can really heat it up and get it going in the off season. But like Duncan mentioned earlier in this episode, I know it's a little early, but Duncan will be in Washington for Thanksgiving next week. And we have our first annual Robertson Turkey Bowl happening on the morning of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, really excited for our first Turkey Bowl. We used to do it growing up with our church. So that was always fun in our hometown, but it's been probably about 10 years. I was telling somebody the other day. So really excited to get a little bit dirty, work off some calories in a non-traditional way. We don't have to go do the 5K in the morning. So we'll burn it off doing some 2-hand touch, a little Turkey Bowl. Hopefully the rain will hold off, or it might be a little mud bath. And I don't know how teams are going to be picked. I'm assuming it's going to be a schoolyard. Hunter's kind of heading up this whole thing, but I am thinking whatever team I'm on will probably win.
Yeah, so Duncan hopes that he's on my team because that's about the only opportunity to put a dub in this year's Turkey Bowl competition, but should be fun. A lot of friends and family, and depending when we record our episode for next week, if we wait to do it together, then we would come to you after Thanksgiving, maybe a little Black Friday deal, a little Black Friday special for the climbers. But if we do record early next week, we might preview that as we get our finalized numbers, kind of get an idea if Duncan and I are both there and both have good numbers, maybe we split off as team captains. So we'll see. Start stretching and loosen up the cannon, but it should be fun. Should be a nice rainy Thanksgiving here. We've had snow before on Thanksgiving, so that would be fun. But a possible treat for the people, we might get access to a turf field, which would mitigate or all but eliminate some possibility of mud. So we'll see. We'll have a little more details, a better idea next week as the 2021 Robertson Turkey Bowl approaches.
Yeah, might even have a little live Instagram on Climb the Ladder's Instagram. So make sure you're following CTL Washed Up on Insta, or maybe a Twitter live. We like to be pretty active on Twitter. So
or Facebook in the new Climbers group.
So yeah, if you're in the Climbers, check us out. Excited for that. Turf would be a treat, but we'll see. It might be like a little bit of a Friends episode with their Turkey Bowl. Got to catch a good Thanksgiving episode from Friends. Those are always solid.
Definitely. Well, this has been a good one. We're definitely full speed into this baseball off season, but plenty of NFL. It's just starting to get exciting, and we'll see where the college football playoff takes us.
Yeah, catch us next week for episode 76, again coming to you during Thanksgiving week. So it might be a little early or a little bit late, but nonetheless, as we always do every week, we will get you an episode. That is a promise and a guarantee. So
And let us know what you're thankful for. It's just a good time to reflect and be around friends and family. And yeah, let us know what you're thankful for and what has been good to you in 2021.
yeah, episode 75 in the books.
In the
Stay tuned.
books.
Join our Facebook group called the Climbers Climb the Ladder podcast. Easy to find on there. We'll put a link in our Climb the Ladder page so that you can get access to it, and tell us what you want to hear. Ask us questions about the episode. Give us some feedback because we love hearing from all of you, the climbers.
And maybe one of you can be a guest. We'd love to have you on. So
Yeah,
with that, as always,
let's climb the ladder.